Assalamu alaikum. In today's video, I'll be giving another proof for the truth of Islam. This is from the historical accuracy of the Quran, specifically regarding Prophet Isa alayhi salam not claiming to be divine. Let's get started. So here's the argument. The Quran mentions that Prophet Isa alayhi salam did not claim to be divine. This went against what all the contemporary sources were saying about Prophet Isa alayhi salam, so it's unlikely anyone would have made up this claim. Yet now there is near consensus among biblical scholarship that historical Jesus did not claim divinity. This belief is held by both secular and Christian scholars, and there are numerous arguments for this fact. In other videos, I've given references from biblical scholars in this regard. In this video, I'll just give the arguments for this. Before I go into any argument, I'll just go make a simple point regarding the reliability of Christian sources. There is general consensus among biblical scholars on the unreliability of the Gospels, a main historical source from that time, among both secular and Christian scholars. And what I'm giving right now is just the mainstream position in this regard. Gospel of Mark is seen as the earliest source from about 70 CE. Gospel of Matthew and Luke were written in 85 CE and are thought to have copied from Mark along with another common source called Q. Gospel of John came much later in 95 CE. There are uh, there are many reasons for biblical sources being unreliable. One of them is massive contradictions and tampering, and inshallah, in our later video, I'll get into more detail on this. But just to give a simple point in this regard, just for the sake of this video, keep this in mind. All of this is mainstream biblical scholarship according to both secular and Christian scholars. None of this is not mainstream. This is all mainstream. I'm not saying something controversial here. So I'll just give three arguments for Prophet Isa alayhi salam not claiming to be divine. This is from Gospel of Mark, our earliest gospel in this regard. So the first point is Prophet Isa alayhi salam denied he is divine. This is from Gospel of Mark, chapter 10, verses 17 and 18. As Jesus started on his way, a man ran up to him and fell on his knees before him. Good teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? This is what the person asked. Now listen to Prophet Isa alayhi salam's reply. Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone, implying that he is not God. That Prophet Isa alayhi salam is saying he is not God. I mean, you can't get more explicit than this. I think this is a clear-cut section verse where Prophet Isa Islam is denying being divine. I think it's just clear-cut here. So this is the first argument. The second argument in this regard is that the verses of Gospels were tempered, and that basically these verses were like you can see that the status of Prophet Isa Islam being increased from human to more than human and basically a type of deity. You can see this in these ayat, in not ayat, my mistake, in these verses. So what I'll do is take the earlier source. I'll give two examples, and there are dozens of this. I'll just give two for brevity. Gospel of Mark is the earlier source. Gospel of Matthew is the later source that copied Mark, right? We'll just compare the two sets of verses in both books. Let's take Mark 9:5. Peter says to Jesus, alayhi salam, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. And the same verse is copied in Matthew, where Rabbi is changed to Lord. Peter says to Jesus, alayhi salam, Lord, it is good for us to be here. The same verse, but the title is changed from Rabbi to Lord. You can see his status is being raised. Let's take another example in this regard. Mark 8:29. But what about you? He asked, who do you say I am? Peter is talking to Prophet Isa alayhi salam and saying, you are the Messiah. This is in Mark, the earlier source. Now look at what happens to this in Matthew. Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So you can clearly see in the later gospel the status of Prophet Isa Islam is being raised. This is the second argument in this regard. There is a third argument in this regard, that the divinity claims are basically absent before the Gospel of John. Now, to prove this point, I'll just give a reference for Bart Ehrman's book, How Jesus Became God, chapter 3. And I'll just read this because this is actually relevant in this regard. It is true that Jesus claims to be divine in the last of our canonical Gospels to be written, the Gospel of John. We will look at the relevant passages at length in chapter 7, but here it is enough to note that that gospel, Jesus does make remarkable claims about himself, but looked at from a historical perspective, they simply cannot be ascribed to the historical Jesus. They don't pass any of our criteria. They are not multiply attested in our sources. They appear only in John, our latest and most theologically oriented gospel. Look at the matter in a different light. As I pointed out, we have numerous earlier sources for the historical Jesus. A few comments in Paul, Mark, Q, M, and L. These are also sources, not to mention the finished Gospels of Matthew and Luke. In none of them do we find exalted claims of this sort. If Jesus went around Galilee proclaiming himself to be a divine being sent from God, one who existed before the creation of the world, who is in fact equal with God, could anything else that he might say be so breathtaking and thunderously important? And yet none of the earlier sources say any such thing about him. Did they? All of them just decide not to mention the one thing that is most significant about Jesus? So basically, this is the third argument in this regard, that the divinity claims are absent before the Gospel of John, the last source. So I think these are three arguments that prove that Prophet Isa alayhis salam did not claim to be divine. Again, I could have filled this video with dozens and dozens of references from biblical scholars, both secular and Christians, in this regard, but instead I prefer to give the arguments here. I will give some references in our YouTube short video. Till next time, I hope you have enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and share this video. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum.